So I called Brendan and I said, Brendan, something's going on. I don't know what it is. I told him that I'd said the prayer and given my life to Jesus. I told him about the dreams. I told him that I was crying all the time. And I said, what's happening to me? Because I was confused. I didn't know what was happening to me. And he said, Josh, it sounds like you've got saved. And it sounds like God's encountering you. And I was like, whoa, okay. Hi, my name's Josh. I'm actually the founder of YESHUA Testimonies on YouTube. So there'll be a link somewhere down below if you want to check us out after this video. And this is my testimony of how Jesus saved me. So I had a pretty normal childhood, but at 5 years old, my mum and dad split. So there was me and my sister who was free. So we would spend like the weekends with my dad and we would spend the week with my mum. I'd say that because of that, I kind of felt like I struggled to have a father figure in my life. I really felt like I was just raised by my mum, to be honest. There was no God in my life. But what there was in my life was my mum, she was quite into mediums. She used to speak about the moon and it affecting her moods. I don't know what that was about. So that stuff had always been like a part of my life. I grew up, mediums coming around to the house. I'd sit in and have readings and things like that. There was issues at home, like usual, you know what I mean? It wasn't perfect. But what I really noticed is that I couldn't stand up for myself. I couldn't really deal with confrontation. I didn't really have a voice. So I ended up as like a prime subject for someone that just wanted to be rude, I suppose, to you and get away with it. Going up to secondary school, I just got in with people that seeing that I was a bit weak in that area and exploited it, and it just made me lose confidence. I just went inward, and just like struggling with self-confidence. And when I turned 18, I started drinking, started going out, I started meeting girls, I started doing drugs, and all this stuff really gave me a bit of purpose, I suppose, especially meeting girls, and confidence. It gave me confidence. The drink and the drugs gave me confidence, and it was something that I'd never had, and all of a sudden I felt like maybe I fit in. Never really felt like I fit in anywhere. I always felt like the odd one out. I always felt like, I struggled in groups. So yeah, you can obviously imagine that became a little bit addictive. I never got addicted to these things, but I reckon I could have. And then at 21, I actually started doing some modelling. Some random lady just asked me one day, if I'd ever done any modelling, gave me a card, and I started doing some modelling. And then around 24, I actually met Alana. She was a model, and it's funny. I always say that we met in bed, because we done a shoot for a mattress company, and we had to just lie in bed all day and just cuddle and spoon and just be playful all day. And that's how I met Alana, who is my partner. She absolutely changed my life. She came in, she sorted me out, she kind of cleaned me up. She didn't actually have to do anything. I just wanted to be a better person because she was a great person. And so I stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs, I stopped doing all those things. And then we actually started building an online business, and we planned to travel. We thought if we can build this business, we'll take ourselves off and we'll go to Asia and we'll travel for a little while. And then something major happened in our relationship. So one of Alana's friends recommended she go see a medium. And basically this medium used a Ouija board. And obviously this was my kind of thing. I was into this, I'd grown up with this. So she asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, yeah, I do. Of course I do. And then so strange, on the day, I didn't go. Something told me not to go. It's I stayed away, And then I remember feeling weird while she was away. I remember feeling like something was off. And she came back and she sat down and she said, have you got something to tell me? And I was like, no. And she said, this thing was extremely, extremely accurate. It told me so much about my life that I can't explain. And it also told me that you have been cheating on me. So as you can imagine, that blew my mind a bit because I hadn't. It was a lie. And so it was very confusing. It was very hard because it was so accurate in all the other areas. It was very hard to make her believe that I hadn't. So that was a very weird time. And at that moment, to be honest, I started questioning the thing that she'd been to. I sort of thought to myself, that's strange. But I still had a belief in this because I'd seen so many people come to my house and tell me crazy things about my life. So a few months later, and this was literally like a few weeks before we were about to go off traveling, I said, right, let's go back. And if I can get speaking to like my granddad who passed away at the time, he's not going to tell lies. That was the way that I was thinking. So we went back, and basically it was crazy accurate. Yeah, I'd never had a reading of someone that was that accurate, you know. And so at the end, I asked, it was my granddad that was supposedly speaking, and I said, have I cheated on Alana? And I just remember the board going, yes, 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 like crazily moving towards yes. I was, angry and upset and confused, and I started crying. And I actually remember saying to him, has this ever lied? Like, have you ever found out that this is not true? And they both said no. So yeah, I was mind blown. What happened was when someone gaslights you and you start thinking, am I that person, or do I do that, or did I do that? I actually went away and I was like, did I cheat on her? Like, have I cheated on her? And it told us a specific time and place and person that was with me. So I called my mate and I was like, did I cheat on Alana this day? And he was like, no. And I was like, yeah, like I explained the situation. He thought it was mad because he didn't believe in that sort of stuff. But yeah, like I was confused. I was really confused because a part of me was like, thought that maybe I did. But I kept sort of bringing myself back to the reality of knowing that I didn't. Do you know what I mean? And he was bringing me into that reality as well, going, no, you didn't. That's a load of rubbish. So as you can imagine, that was like really tough to get through. We were going traveling in a few weeks. And so we had to really sit down and work out, like, are we going traveling together? Should we call this off? I was really annoyed because I was getting accused of something that I hadn't done, and that was very hard, and it was potentially going to ruin my relationship with Alana. And I just knew Alana was the one for me. I knew that I was going to marry Alana, and so that was tough. Like, I was really struggling with that. Anyway, I don't really know how, but she believed me. We swept it under the rug. It popped up for a while, as you can imagine. But we went away traveling. We had an amazing time traveling. We traveled for 3 years. And whilst I was traveling, I started to feel unsafe in the dark. I had felt unsafe as a kid in the dark quite a lot, but I'd obviously got over that as I'd got older. And so I started to feel really unsafe in the dark. I felt as though whatever that was speaking through that thing, it wanted to split us up, and it was confusing. I was like, why would it want to split us up? And I really felt like it was coming against me specifically. I think in hindsight it's probably coming against us both, but I really felt like it was coming against me because obviously the attack was on me. I'd sort of dabbled in New Age things for probably the last 3 or 4 years. I'd been reading books like The Secret, I'd been meditating, I'd been doing all these things. And I actually found like a lot of relief, especially in meditating, because my mind was, always on the go, like everyone's mind. And then whilst we were away, I really got into meditation. I got into yoga, and I just went on this journey of like a self-help kind of New Age journey of like trying to understand myself, And I grew like loads. I changed loads. I understood a lot about myself. I understood a lot of things from my past and like kind of realized that they weren't right. So it was a very good period of time for me. But I still sort of felt lost, And at the same time, we had this really cool life where we sort of traveled, we took photos, we shared them online. We were basically influencing for like hotels and Airbnbs, and we were doing all this sort of stuff. And I remember people were messaging me saying like, you're living the dream. And there was a part of me that thought, if this is the dream, like there's something completely missing from this. I was aware that there was something missing. I didn't know it was spiritually, but I could feel that there was something missing. So yeah, I went on this period of really, really delving into the New Age. I didn't know it was the New Age. I didn't really know it was a thing. I just seen people talking about it on Instagram and things. And, I was a big fan of like Jay Shetty and people like that. And then in 2022, we flew back to England. We'd been away for 3 years, and I came back into my family dynamic, and it was interesting, right? I changed a lot. My eyes had been open to a lot, and I just sort of like seen everything like really, really differently, and just sort of like was like way more aware. And I remember whilst we were in England, we were there for a couple of weeks. I remember going out, and I remember going like and doing like a food shop or something like that. And I just remember seeing like bad habits, not from like a really judgmental place, but from a curious place. I'd see like guys in the pub at 10 a.m. drinking and smoking, and I'd just sort of think, I wonder why they're doing that. And it was like my eyes were really being opened. Like everywhere I looked, I just seen bad habits. It was really strange, but I really feel that God was drawing me at that point, and He was kind of opening my eyes to sin. Because before that, I'd never, ever seen those sorts of things. It was really weird how that happened. So we'd been home for 2 weeks, and we flew over to Northern Ireland. Alana's from Northern Ireland. So we came over to Northern Ireland. We surprised her family, which was really fun. And then her mum said, she'd been going to a Christian group on a Wednesday, and she's told them that we're home, and they're really excited to meet us. So instantly, like, my back was up. I don't know what it is about like Christians, but I just didn't have a good association with Christians. I thought it's a load of rubbish. To be honest, I'd never met a proper Christian, But basically, Alana's mum was like, I've told them that you're coming now, so you need to come. So I sort of thought, right, well, I'll not let my mother-in-law down. I'll go. So I went along anyway. And I remember there was a guy there called Brendan. And me and Brendan spoke for maybe 5 minutes before the meeting. And I remember he looked me dead in the eyes and he goes, "You're an amazing young man, And it kind of blew my mind because I was like, instantly like, what do you want? I was instantly weirded out, but at the same time, it felt lovely. I don't think anyone had ever said that to me. I don't think anyone had given me that sincere of a compliment, especially knowing him for 5 minutes. So that interested me, I thought to myself, why is he so nice? So anyway, the service went ahead, and I found it really awkward because it was, for one, we were singing, and I was like, this is weird. And everyone was worshipping God, and I'd never really seen that before. So that was also weird. And I just felt uncomfortable. That's the word I would say. But after the meeting, Brendan came straight to me and he said, "You're going to think I'm crazy." But he came over and he basically said, "God's told me that you're going to be a preacher and a teacher in the name of Jesus." And it blew my mind. It blew my mind for a few reasons, right? Because like I was the biggest preacher and teacher you'd ever met, I would preach and teach about everything that I knew. Obviously not about Jesus at that time. It really aligned with who I was, my personality. And I just want to say, like, I hadn't been like preachy or teachy to Brendan, I just literally just met him. I just had a normal conversation with him. So that really like made me think, okay, that's weird how you would know that. And then another thing is obviously like I'd had mediums speak into my life, like all my life. And I'd often took, what they said on board and acted on it. So I sort of thought to myself, I didn't know this was a thing in Christianity. I didn't know God spoke through people. I didn't know God spoke. I didn't know you could have a relationship with God. I just thought it was kind of like a spiritually dead religion. I thought it was just you walk into a church and you pretend there's a God and you just, I thought it was like all about faith. Like you didn't really know God in any way. So that was interesting. I thought to myself, oh, these Christians hear from God. So I came away from that meeting with a new idea of who God was. Brendan also preached the gospel to me, and it was interesting. I was interested. I went to YouTube and I started watching like Bible stories, trying to understand who Jesus was. And I kind of like half understood what the Bible was saying, but half kind of was like, this is going over my head, Fast forward a couple of months, a testimony popped up on my YouTube, and it was actually from Delafe Testimonies. And I remember watching that testimony, and I'd never really heard a testimony before, and it kind of blew me away. It was, again, God really meeting people, cleaning people up, speaking to people, changing people's lives. And again, it just reinforced this idea of, okay, God does this. God is relational. Anyway, and I just went on this journey of like watching testimony after testimony after testimony. I just binged testimonies all day long. Every spare bit of time I had, I was watching testimony. Towards the end, a testimony popped up, and it was New Age to Jesus, and it was a guy talking about ayahuasca. And at this point, ayahuasca was something that was like I was interested in, and if I would have had access to it, or if I would have known someone, I probably would have gone and done it. I'm glad I didn't. I didn't know what the New Age was at that point still. And I watched this video, and it was honestly like this guy was talking directly to me. It was like his experiences was the exact same as my experiences. He explained it in a really interesting way of like being on like a hamster wheel. And like in the New Age, like constantly working, like having to do more, having to do this more, maybe more meditation, maybe more yoga, and then eventually needing like a new practice to add on, and having to just constantly work. And I really resonated with that. He had grown up a Christian, and obviously he'd backslidden, and he said he felt as though Jesus was calling him back. So he turned back to Jesus, and he said he realized that Jesus was giving him all the peace and all the joy and all the purpose that he was looking for in the New Age. So this really, really, it spoke to me, It was like I was supposed to see that video that day. And I remember thinking, I'm going to give this Jesus a go. I didn't really know a crazy amount about him still. I just heard all these testimonies of how he turned up in people's lives. So I said the prayer. I repented of my sins. I'd done all those things. And nothing really changed. But then in 2 weeks' time, I had a dream. And I just want to clarify, like I'd never had dreams like this before. And it was a dream where I woke up and something was like imprinted in my mind. It was like, I can't even remember if I dreamt it or if it was like something that just was imprinted in my mind as I woke up. It was weird. I instantly knew this is God speaking to me. Like I just knew. And what he said was, he said, I want to use you like you use your car. He was like, you get in the car and you accelerate when you want to go. And he was like, and you brake when you want to stop. He was like, I want you to listen to me and go only when I tell you and where I tell you. Brake when I tell you to stop. He was like, when I tell you to go left, go left. When I tell you to go right, go right. And it was this crazy moment where I realized God's speaking to me. I didn't really understand the Holy Spirit. I didn't really understand that he lived in us. I didn't really understand any of that. I'd heard it, but I didn't understand it. It hadn't clicked. I hadn't read the Bible. I hadn't been to a church yet. So it blew my mind, right? And then about a week later, we were driving home to England to go see my parents. I remember it was a beautiful morning. There was a beautiful sunrise. And something just like came over me. I was like crying uncontrollably, sobbing, like weeping. It was very confusing. And I just wanted to speak about God. I was just telling Alana about God, about how good God is, how I need to tell my family, how I need to tell the world. And I was just like, I was so uncontrollably upset. And I kept saying to her, I don't know what's going on here, but I just need to speak about God to you. So we got back to England. I obviously told my family about God. They weren't that impressed, to be honest. But what happened then, for the next few days, I was putting worship music on YouTube, and I just couldn't stop crying. Every time I was hearing worship music, seeing people worshiping, on the YouTube, because it was like a concert, I was seeing people worshiping. I was realizing these people were my age, because there was a part of me that thought God was for old people. And so I was seeing people my age, and everything was just making me cry. So I called Brendan and I said, Brendan, something's going on. I don't know what it is. I told him that I'd said the prayer and given my life to Jesus. I told him about the dreams. I told him that I was crying all the time. And I said, what's happening to me? Because I was confused. I didn't know what was happening to me. And he said, Josh, it sounds like you've got saved. And it sounds like God's encountering you. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then I remember about a week later or a few days later, I had another dream. And it was the same as last time. It was I woke up and there was just this thing imprinted in my brain. And it was loads of different things. So I went downstairs and I wrote them all down. And basically what I realized was every single thing was a moment in my life where God had tried to encounter me. You know, I remember the first one was when I was about 5, and it was when I was in assembly and we sung songs about Jesus. And I didn't even really know we were singing about Jesus. I just loved to sing them, and they made me feel really good. And I had a friend that came up to me and goes, you look in your element when you're singing in assembly. Like, someone told me that. And he brought that moment back to me. And there was just loads of other like little moments where God was like, this was me trying to reach out to you. This was me, giving you those feelings, let's say, of singing and feeling joy. And but I didn't know him. I didn't understand who he was. So obviously I didn't know. But yeah, that was another mind-blowing dream. So after that, we moved back to Northern Ireland. I got a Bible and I opened it and I could understand it. I could read it. I couldn't get enough of it, which was amazing. That was a miracle in itself, that I could read it and understand it, And I started going to church. I just fell in love with Jesus. I fell in love with worship. Worship was a real big one for me. I used to just love listening to worship music. I still do. God continued to reveal himself to me. He started giving me words of knowledge for people, and they were spot on. And it was blowing my mind, that this was happening to me. Over the next few months, everything started to change. Things started falling away, bad habits started falling away. My desires started to change. The path that I was walking in life completely changed. My work changed. Just everything changed. God laid it on my heart to start YESHUA Testimonies. Obviously, I got saved through watching testimony. And at that time, obviously, we'd been creating content while we were away, and we both had YouTube channels. And I knew that God was calling me to a testimony channel. So that took me about 6 months or 9 months maybe to pluck up the courage. God's really blessed that. And he's used that to teach me so much, just from hearing people's stories, from interacting with so many different believers. And, it's been really good for me. That it's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey. I just want to wrap up with, if you're watching this, you've obviously got some sort of interest in either the New Age or in Jesus. And I just want to say that following Jesus was the best decision I ever made. Honestly. And before this, we had the most perfect life on paper. We were traveling the world. We were getting paid to share about our journey. But there was something massively missing. I was in the New Age, but yeah, it just couldn't deliver. I can't tell you how much Jesus has delivered. Obviously, it's your call, but I would say the best thing you could ever do in life is give your life to Jesus. Thanks for listening. God bless.